Hey everybody, it's time for a Friday video filled with a few polls. We've got New York City, Florida, and Alabama, but we're going to kick it off here in Virginia. This is a poll from WIC. There's some big races coming up in November, including governor, so let's get down into it. In this poll, we've got 1,000 likely voters surveyed July 9th through the 11th. But we're going to just hit the highlights. In that big governor's race, Abigail Spanberger, the Democrat, is leading Winsome Sears by 10 points, 50 to 40, 7% undecided. It looks like it continues to be an uphill climb for Sears. With Trump in the White House and Spanberger running a decent campaign, it would be tough to bet against the Dems flipping this seat. Now, for whatever reason, they did not poll the lieutenant governor's race, but they did poll the race for attorney general. In that race, incumbent Republican Jason Miyares, he's trailing Jay Jones by 7, 48 to 41, 11% undecided. Slightly narrower than the race for governor, but not overly significant. It would be tough to imagine anything other than one party sweeping all three of those. It says here we've got Spanberger is supported by 95% of Dems, and Sears is getting support of 87% of Republicans. So there's some Republican voters out there that Sears is not yet picking up. And I still think, relatively speaking, it's kind of early with this race. Once we get past Labor Day, that's when you're really going to want to start to take a look at this polling. Then they talk about Youngkin and Harris voters. It might be hard to believe, but there are some voters that supported both of those two candidates. It's just 4% of this sample. So those do seem to be persuadable, swing-type voters. It's a small sample size, but with those, Spanberger is leading Sears by a massive 72 to 17% margin. So another positive sign there for Spanberger. And the last thing we'll point out here is the view of the two major political parties. Republicans are viewed favorably by 41%, 57% unfavorable, including 50% very unfavorable. Democrats are right in the same ballpark, 41 favorable, 55 unfavorable, and slightly less very unfavorable at 44. So we're going to continue to follow this race, but that's what we've got in this poll. And if you were wondering what the breakdown is with political party, we've got 36% of this poll is Republican, 39.1 Democrat, 22.1 Independent. And remember that sample size is 1,000. And then down here, it asks in the November election, who did you vote for? Trump is at 42.6, Harris 51.5. Those numbers are slightly underestimating Trump, but even so, that could be who turns out in this governor's election. Dems easily could be more motivated. And in the last governor's election, that same sample size did support Youngkin, 47.3 to 43.3 for Terry McAuliffe. So that's what we've got for Virginia. Let's move on to New York City. Again, this is another poll from WIC. If you're a big fan of Mark Halperin, you've got a picture of him right there. But we've got 500 likely voters in this sample size, taken July 18th through the 20th. So let's see what we've got. We've got the approval rating for Donald Trump. And given we're talking about New York City, no surprise, it's not that good. We're looking at 59% strongly disapprove, but 23% do strongly approve, another 12% approve. With the party crosstabs, 98% of Republicans, and there are some of them in New York City, they approve of Trump. Even 15% of Democrats also approve. With independents, it's more even. 44 approve, 54 disapprove. Now, the main event here is going to be for New York City mayor. So if you compare Trump's favorability rating to the other candidates in the race, Trump is somewhere in the middle of the pack. Zoran Mamdani is even right now, 43 and 43. Andrew Cuomo is underwater. He's at 34 and 62 disapprove. Eric Adams is even worse, 22 to 73 unfavorable. And Curtis Sliwa, the Republican in the race, 36 favorable, 51 unfavorable. Let's see what we've got next. If your opinion of Trump and Mamdani is based more on personality or on policy, it's kind of a weird question. Personality alone gets just 6% for both. Just for policy, Mamdani is at 46. But equally, with policy and personality, Trump is at 56. Now, voters are still getting to know Mamdani a little bit, so these numbers could change by the time the election happens. Let's see what we've got in the head-to-head matchups. In a four-way race between Mamdani, Cuomo, Adams, and Sliwa, Mamdani is the winner at 39, Cuomo 21, Sliwa 18, and incumbent mayor Eric Adams is at 9, another 13 undecided. With independents, they're pretty much all over the map, close to about 20% for all candidates. Of course, Republicans go hard for Sliwa. But what about Democrats? They're the dominant majority. Mamdani gets 54% of their support. Cuomo pulls in 27. Then it's way down from there. We're going to be waiting to see if the other candidates, aside from Cuomo and Mamdani, drop out. So far, Mamdani has the advantage, but he's not completely running away with it. Now we're going to go down a little bit further. What about if it were just Mamdani against Cuomo? Then we've got a dead heat. Cuomo actually leads by 42 to 41, 17% undecided. The crosstabs here are interesting. With Republicans, 10% are going for Mamdani. Cuomo is getting 61, 29 still undecided. Independents go 27 for Mamdani, 56 for Cuomo. Democrats go for Mamdani, 55 to 34 for Cuomo. It might not happen like this at all, but according to this poll, if it were a head-to-head matchup, it's not totally unreasonable to think that Cuomo actually could pull it out as an independent. He's unpopular and he just lost in a primary, but he's got super high name ID, he's got a ton of connections, and Mamdani is an unconventional candidate. So this is going to be a race to follow over the next several months. Now, if it were just Mamdani against Eric Adams, then Mamdani has a 10-point lead, 47 to 37. And finally, if it were Mamdani against Republican Curtis Sliwa, then it's the biggest lead yet for Mamdani, 53 to 35. It's not a huge shock because it would be extremely difficult for any Republican to win this race. But it's worth pointing out that even in this race, independents break for Sliwa, 54 to 38. There's a lot more in this poll about different aspects of this race, but we've got to keep moving. Let's move on to Florida. Here's a UNF poll about that Republican primary for governor. We just took a look at one of these last week that showed a clear lead for Byron Donalds. But this, they have Casey DeSantis ahead by a hair. So that is kind of surprising, considering Casey DeSantis is not yet in this race. It's not even clear if she's gonna get in the race, plus Trump has already endorsed Byron Donalds. But in this poll, DeSantis leads with 32%, Byron Donalds is at 29%. DeSantis is in the lead with women, Hispanic voters, those in North and Central Florida, and those under 65. Donalds is leading with men, voters over 65, and South Florida voters, notably those who voted in the 2024 primary. And it also says that 8% of respondents indicated a vote for Matt Gaetz, another 18% undecided. Gaetz, I don't really think is a factor in this race, but they do point out when they asked back in the fall of 2023, that was a long time ago, more than a year and a half. Then Casey DeSantis was ahead with 22%. Donalds was at 9%, 40% undecided. When you're talking about that much time, anything could happen. Casey DeSantis being the wife of Governor Ron, her name ID is naturally going to be higher. Over the past year and a half, Byron Donalds' profile has risen considerably. But it is still surprising to see in this poll, DeSantis is close to or even ahead of Donalds. That would be a bruising primary battle if it were DeSantis against Donalds. And this is just one poll. The other ones have shown Donalds with the advantage. So I don't put a whole lot of stock into this, but it's worth pointing out. And again, there's more data here down below if you want to take a look at it. The last race we're going to look at here is going to be in Alabama. This is for the U.S. Senate on the Republican side. It's an open seat because Tommy Tuberville is running for governor instead of the Senate. This has Attorney General Steve Marshall, the frontrunner in this poll from McLaughlin. So how convincing are the numbers here for Marshall? Well, he's at 35%, not extremely convincing. They also poll U.S. Rep. Barry Moore, but he's way down there at just 12%. And former Navy SEAL Jared Hudson at 9%. The big number here, 44%. That's the number undecided. So Marshall is in the lead, but with under 40% of the vote. And his name ID is already fairly high at 80%. Moore is down there at 56%. Hudson at 39%. Almost any Republican that becomes the nominee is very likely to win in the general election. So there's a lot of appeal for any Republican running for the Senate in Alabama. I don't know if there's really a knockout candidate here. If there is, with these numbers, it's not going to be Steve Marshall just yet. So nothing on the Dem side, and again, it's a pretty red state. Most of the focus is going to be on this side. Now, this poll had 600 likely May 2026 Republican primary voters. And then down here, we've got some of the details. The only thing to really point out here is going to be the favorability ratings. Marshall is at 47 favorable, 14 unfavorable. For Moore, it's 23-9, and for Hudson, it's 15-2. So not exactly a top tier race, but when there's some polling out there, there's a decent chance we're going to take a look at it anyway. So that's where we're at in Virginia, New York City, Florida, and here in Alabama. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about any of these races? Is it clearly going to be Spanberger in Virginia? What about the different dynamics in New York City? How about Casey DeSantis in Florida? And in Alabama, is it going to be Steve Marshall or is it going to be somebody else? Let me know what you think down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.